everybody! I know some of you have been looking forward to this show. I have a very special guest today, and I'm very honored to introduce Her Royal Highness Princess Lia of Romania. Good evening.
Good evening, Nora, dear friend.
How are you?
In your presence, I'm always happy.
You're so sweet. I tried to say, I said, we're going to pretend like we're in my living room, and there's a camera there, and we're going to have a conversation, and we will talk about whatever you feel like talking about.
And whatever's interesting for your massive army of admirers.
Oh, you're so sweet. I want to say thank you very much for the flowers, which I was like, that is so sweet. And actually, you're right, they do match my dress, except the funny thing is my dress looks more orange on TV than red. Did you notice?
Curious,
yeah?
Exactly. Actually, from live television, it's Reagan red. Reagan red. So I don't know about
they call it Reagan red?
The
oh,
orange,
isn't that interesting?
The orange, yes. Okay.
So you were so kind to get us pictures, because these, for the people viewing, are family pictures, okay, that they very kindly allowed us to put on the show. So from time, from time to time, maybe you'll, oh, I remember this one. This was with Monica when she was still here.
Of course, of course.
Yes, okay.
Yes,
so
a happy picture.
Yes, we've had some great moments together.
I think because we have very lively sons who are far too intelligent to say or do many things boring, it keeps us lively also. And so we've had soul mothers, if you will, comparing notes, but also it's the adventure of being in a country that is breathing liberty, that is deserves to catch up on the various, let's say, sacrifices, but the good things that have happened to Romania in the different epochs. Very, very much. It's a secret to most Europeans, and perhaps it's the good Lord's way of preparing Romania for important things, because the Romanian women are so special. I don't say that because I'm only Romanian. Both of my parents were born and raised in Romania, Arad and Alba Iulia. But I've noticed that although I've worked, lived, or studied in the East and the West, I find the women here keep their femininity, they guard their femininity, but they are hard workers, extremely well balanced with their job or career, their family, the duties to the religion, but also the responsibilities that you as an American Canadian and myself, 100% Romanian, but having lived abroad, I have never seen a nation of women that took such care and had so many responsibilities for their extended family. That's something that I think is rather unique about Romanian women. It's not just taking care of their husband or their partner and their children, etc. It's the mother-in-law, it's the cousins. Oh, I have to leave early because I must drive my grandmother to the dentist, something like that. They're not complaining. I am amazed on how they do their work. They don't really mire in bad gossip. They've got so many preparations for the next stage of Romania, which I hope will be well-deserved, absolutely well-deserved.
I have two questions for you. Actually, I have a comment about what you just said. For me, coming from outside, it was very interesting to see here, because I've lived in Canada, I've lived in Los Angeles, and I've lived in London. And here with the family is so involved.
Yes.
They spend time with the grandparents, help raise the children, which for us is very unusual. Where I'm from, the grandparents, they see once in a blue moon, and they don't really have the interaction that they have here, and it's taken for granted. And I was so surprised and pleasantly surprised, but it was a bit shocking at first. I'm like, well, where are the kids with the grandparents? I'm like, the whole summer? I said, well, I couldn't imagine doing that. That was very different for us, number one. Number two, my question now, how did you adjust to that after having been brought up in a Western society and with, I'm sure, the influence of the Western mentality and coming here? How did you adjust to that?
As usual, good question, Nora. If I would have morphed from San Francisco to Bucharest, yes, it would have been a challenging adjustment. Not good or bad, just a challenge. But on one hand, because I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the wrong time, I did get accepted to do my postgraduate in Oxford. And Oxford was a more logical segue to Bucharest because it is serious, it is not joking about everything, and you do find that a little bit in some of the American cities. Everything is a joke, everything is a joke. And here, because of the fact that I think that the Romanians have such a rich history, and I learned not to be humble, but learned to see our own problems of education in the West and the fact that so many budgets are being cut. I do see that still in Romania, and education is highly, highly valued and sought after. And what else is different, frankly, and again, having come direct from Oxford, it was not unusual for me to see women here continuing their education. Most people think that after high school or after college and when you do your family, then you just not relax, you vegetate your own development. I have so many people that I care about that are doing night school, they're doing programs to better themselves, to perhaps have an easier time with foreign languages so that they can be more competitive. I'm very proud of the ambition of Generation X here, and also the women. But I would say this, that it took me a moment to just weigh some similarities and why I think I'm so comfortable in Romania. Not just because I am of the blood, but it is the fact that experiences in my life prepared me. For instance, coming from San Francisco, this was the first and most ravaged city with AIDS. So I had been fortunate to be one of the pioneers. Before Rock Hudson died, I was asked by Jim Hormel, who is of the Hormel meat family in Chicago, exactly. Okay. And he had said, would I agree, because he knew I had been asked on different occasions by friends to either make speeches, to either open my home gladly for a town meeting in the early days of AIDS. And all of these experiences where I saw the homophobia, I was lucky enough to be able to be with some activists. I was used to be the non-aggressive matron who talked to the minister, the Secretary of Health and Education, Schweiker, in the Reagan administration, to release the first $2 million for AIDS research. And then when we did an event for AIDS awareness, we decided to understand the problems in the United States and in the West. And it was before the baby situation was brought to the world's attention about the suffering in Romania. But there was this toxic homophobia. And we had this event in San Francisco, and we turned down some of the giants who have a cult following, let's say, in the liberal and the gay and lesbian community, because we wanted to communicate to the American public, this is not God's curse on gays. This is not some punishment or germ warfare. This was one of the rumors, the conspiracy rumors. This is a virus that anyone can get if you're not careful about cuts, fluid, etc. To the point we used two people who are the sweethearts of mid-America. That was Debbie Reynolds, comes forward, and we thought this is just too much fun. Her arch rival, because allegedly Shirley MacLaine was the first choice for the unsinkable Molly Brown. She was stuck, if you will, filming Irma la Douce. So Debbie Reynolds comes in, she made a good audition, and she got the part. Well, they were, let's say, Hollywood feuds, if it's real or not. And so we found out that Shirley MacLaine was going to be coming to do a concert, a series of her dance spectacles and so on. We invited her early. She was a surprise guest, and you know, the two of them, it was so uproarious because they both tried to challenge each other dancing.
Oh my goodness.
They both tried to do one thing to outdo the other, and then they just hugged, and they said, what better way to make up than in front of so many of our fans. But that preparation and that lobbying and being able to come in to a audience of very strict conservative Bible Belt constituents, let's say, prepared me for Romania. Why? Because there was the Casa Doru, which was is such a success story. But when you have foreigners come in and say, oh, poor dears, your poor country, oh, there's street children and there's orphans and so on, this doesn't help a country bounce back to their rightful place in the diplomacy field, let's say. It is something that is misunderstood. Oh, you pity me. Maybe I'm not worthy. It was a self-investigation. And I tried with people coming in with charities and so on to say, make a positive effort, not poor you, poor you. And the situation actually with orphans, I was most happy with the preparation that I had of being on a commission in the United States called WAIF. Jane Russell founded it in World War II. And hence Reagan, her not co-star, but colleague in Hollywood, was genuinely a marvelous asset on the board. Seeing that you need to be able to tell an audience in Germany or an audience in America, Poland, whatever, that every country has orphans. Don't just say Romania is a country of orphans. And if they are, they're handling the problem as best they can to give a sense of worth, a sense of caring, touching, treating each child as God's gift. But I also realize that I was introduced to, let's say, the pain. Having been asked by the Reagan administration, and particularly Vice President George Bush, the late George Bush Sr., who had invited Archbishop Desmond Tutu to come to the United States after he got the Peace Prize, when Mandela was still in prison. He was turned down. And the black mayor of Los Angeles, our dear family friend, Tom Bradley, asked Tutu, no, thank you, but I can't. I was asked to go to Cape Town and see what the problem was. I flew there, and long story short, I understood the problem. He was rightfully afraid that if he left, he wouldn't be able to return, and a separation of the family. So we pulled strings that were the size of ropes. We solved the problem and brought the whole family over. But what I saw is I learned very, very eagerly from him. When you have hecklers, when you have people who are torn with hate about a cause, a project, or the country of Romania, because it had an unfortunate reputation, very unfounded, but it was there. To flip it, not with, let's say, humor to in any way minimize it, but to handle it with a light touch and also to flip the situation. That experience of dealing with hatred prepared me for the reaction that we had when my husband and I decided we want to get married in Romania. Some people have got to start knowing and forcing the press to show the real Romania, the hidden treasure of Europe, our people, and the literacy rate and the gifts we have from nature, etc. So when I had to deal with friends who were afraid to come to Romania, or those that came with suitcases filled with soap and canned food and so on, it made me realize that there's good work to be done. But lastly, the experience I had about living like you did in London, and was a great admirer of Thatcher and what she did for tourism, investment, by encouraging merchant ivory to make films in England. It was, the best compliment is to copy, but to acknowledge her pioneering spirits. And our mission, if you would be, that it was to help create jobs, to bring the attention of the world through movies that would be filmed in Romania. And one story that you, who have been to the Oscars, will appreciate, one person who is very decent to us, and I know he's having an unfortunate time, but this was when Harvey Weinstein was on top, totally on top, was we were invited to meet him in Paris, and what woman doesn't jump at the chance to go?
Okay.
We met, and he had said that he was very disappointed with what happened in Poland and what happened to his film crew in Bulgaria. And I said, I don't want to hear about that. I'm sure this will be rectified. But in Romania, we show respect to the directors. We're not just starstruck. We adore artistry. We adore the power of the films to make a change. And we convinced him to come. And I said, we can't
I didn't know any of this.
Oh yes, we cannot make a guarantee, but I said, I promise you that we will answer Anthony Mangelis, the director, his call if he has any hiccup or any problem. Well, I didn't regret saying that, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, phone rings, and there's Mr. Mangela, panic-stricken because the 2,000 extras from Italy, they're bringing in extras from Italy, if you can imagine this. The soldiers in the pit, the war scenes from the Civil War, no speaking. So why bring them all the way from Italy? Well, they were stuck in customs because some idiots in their group brought drugs. And so the whole group was held hostage.
Oh my goodness.
We then were asked, can you help? Can you fix the problem? Well, thank goodness to the fine Minister of Defense, Tinka at the time. Pașcu was Secretary of State. And we said, can we have a meeting now, right now? And it's only good news, but please trust us. So we went there, explained the situation. We said we've been able to get an assurance that the Romanian soldiers would get the same salary as the Italian extras. They'd eat the same food as Jude Law, Nicole Kidman, Donald Sutherland, etc., and Renee Zellweger got a Best Supporting Actress for their part. And they had fun. They were able to have an adventure to tell their children, etc. And it was a good morale booster. And from that point, I'd have to say the experience I had of helping found the San Francisco Film Festival gave me enough of the contacts. And in Hollywood, it's like Genesis. Beget, beget, beget. If you know so and you did a good job with them, you can ask them to open the door to someone else. And so it was Francis Coppola, our former neighbor, who helped open the door for DreamWorks, which is Spielberg, of course.
I saw a picture with him.
Yes, yes. We were tickled that he remembered our modest presence. Please, please consider Romania. And we were at his table at the Obama inauguration. And the whole point is that nurturing of bringing the experience of the film festival and knowing how to really talk with people who have such power. You don't waste time with the schmoozing.
You can't. They don't have time to
They
waste.
want
You're right.
to know, are you going to be able to provide this, this, and that? And I will say this, I got the nugget of information that without a tax deduction, tax incentive, they were not that favorable. So hats off, pun intended, to Vlad Paunescu, who'd been working at Castel Films for 13 years to convince each and every minister of tourism, each and every minister of industry and government to do the smart thing and give a tax.
That's why we started doing it here.
Thanks to him.
And that's why there are other people coming in now.
Absolutely.
It's a huge plus.
What
Listen.
I learned from your country
Yeah.
is the whole secret at the end of a program, at the end of a film or television serial, you have made in Canada, filmed in Ottawa, filmed in Vancouver. That makes a subliminal message on tourism, on investment, etc. And so who was a gentleman, we got a call from the producer of a upcoming film that was maybe going to be done. They were checking locations. And this was the Western epic on television, the McCoys, the two feuding families in the Appalachian Mountains who killed each other over several generations. And the person had said, do you want to meet the star, Kevin Costner? And I said, well, like everyone, I'm a fan of his films and so on. But no, it's not necessary. I would like to talk to whomever has the power to say yes or no to come to Romania. And he said, that's Mr. Costner. And he said, what are you wanting by doing this lobbying? He said, you know, both of you are very good. You answered all of my questions. You had facts and figures. What do you want from us? And I said, I want your word as a gentleman and a businessman. We don't take commission. When it's bringing jobs to Romania, that's our duty and our delight. What we want is for you to acknowledge when you get your Emmy, because I saw your script, and you're going to get an Emmy. Well, they got three or four. Acknowledge that it was filmed, and bless him, within 70 seconds, I believe, he said, who would have ever imagined that an American classic Western epic would be filmed flawlessly in Romania? So, bravo to chivalry.
Wonderful. I've been watching the pictures. There is Prince Paul with Colin Powell.
Yes. The first person who was talked about seriously to be the first black president. And he would have been, but he turned it down because his wife, who's a hugely respected lady in her own right, Marta, was afraid of assassination. So he served his country flawlessly with the Bush administration, and he is a hero to so many of us.
I don't know if people know that I think you were working in the Carter administration,
Both.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She got around a lot. She has stories, and I'm slowly, because
I don't have as many stories as Nora.
No, yes, you do. So, Leah, there was a picture now with Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, yes. Nancy.
Anything you want to share with us about that?
Oh, well, I would say gladly, because there is a formidable lady who remains constant to her principles. And I admire anyone who has served in the White House, who has served in a government, in just about any country, because you could get paid so much more. You could get so much more glory and a third of the grief. Mm-hmm. But these patriots are there. And Nancy was, I'll stretch it a little bit, somewhat of a neighbor. And she's unique because she was in a generation when women went to college I think she went to St. Mary College in the Washington area, because her father had been the mayor of Baltimore.
Really?
Yes, and she is the first to make Guinness Book of Records that it was a father and a daughter who became Congress persons.
Really?
So Nancy had 5 children, good Catholic family, and all 5 of them are wonderful, useful citizens, and not a single bad apple. She was a diligent mother, always sacrificing for the family. And when the last one flew the nest, that's when she said, I want to try out. She served the California Democratic Council, the party, and then worked her way to be a formidable candidate.
But that's amazing, because really, she waited till the kids did their thing.
Yes.
And then she said, it's time for me. And she's gone to such a level. It's very interesting to watch.
She's been a good role model, totally.
Yeah. Now, this I recognize, too, is Florin Piersic Sr.
Oh, talking about role models.
Yes.
Florin, who is ageless. I think there must be either a news clipping or a photograph a la Dorian Gray, where the man looks as wonderful and healthy and joyful as was the first time when we met him 20 years ago. The one thing that, being role model, I was at, I think it was German television or something, and he is known. His films are either dubbed or have the trailer underneath. And many of them are real westerns. They're not spaghetti westerns. They're wonderful performances that he's made. And this German moderator was saying that he is like Romania's version of John Wayne. And I said, I beg to differ, because John Wayne didn't dance on his own variety show, didn't sing on his own variety show, didn't do comedies, westerns, dramas, epic dramas, but also, do you know John Wayne doing by memory Peer Gynt to the orchestration? And this is Piersic, who has been such an honorable example for Joseph, your wonderful son's generation. Never a scandal about him, just a gentleman.
Nice. This is a picture, well, there's Carol.
Ah, yes, we're in our own national costumes.
I know, lovely, and I remember the tree.
Yes, yes, and my dear mother had a collection that was enviable. So my sister Doina and I inherited them, and we treasure them.
So how old is Carol now?
Carol is 9 years old.
In January, he's 10.
Correct, correct.
I remember when you were pregnant.
Oh, yes.
We go back a ways. And I swear to you, Joseph has just turned 12.
Yes.
I don't know where the time goes. I mean, they were... And Joseph is now as tall as me, as you know.
Well, you with loving attention, discipline, and your audience probably doesn't know, but how many mothers will give up a party invitation or give up a important invitation that is for their career. Every Sunday, Nora, without being a martyr, is there helping Joseph do his homework, and it shows.
I don't know if you should tell
it shows. I mean, I'm your public relations person. Yes.
He's supposed to be. No, I'm there in case he needs my help. But it's true, because I remember you invited me a few weeks ago, and I said, no, I can't come on Sunday. And you said, I said, that's like homework day, unless there's like an absolute, really, I mean, emergency. Somebody has to be there, you know.
Of course.
Nose to the grindstone and all that, but you're so sweet. He's at an age where it's, you know.
And I wanted to say one little thing about Florin. He was one of the people, we were very honored that we were able to launch the first breast cancer awareness in, it seems, not my statistic, but it appears to be the first in Central and Eastern Europe. And very much what was the surprise, and to understand the bravery of the women here, is we were helped, of course, by different institutions and foreign aid and so on, and mammogram machines and so on. But we had an event to launch it where we had the divas of television who, from, and I mean that as a compliment, Mihaela Radulescu, Andrea Marin.
Yeah.
Yes. Theo Trandafir. I think it was Mirabella Dower. On and on and on. Women who are in competing fields. Absolutely all of them came to cut the pink ribbon and to talk to their fans. Nice. Take care of yourself. This is how you examine, self-examine. There's no shame. Yeah. There was this feeling that it's a sign of malnutrition, or it's a sign of, you know, sometimes you have people who are crippled with superstition. And although Romanians are superstitious about lucky things, some elements are afraid that they're being punished with breast cancer. All of this, their idols put forward a message that take care of yourself. You owe it to your family, and you deserve that care.
Do you know what I want to tell you I learned as a mother? And the doctor said it to me. I said, no, I have to worry about him. She said, you don't get it. Deli says to me, you have to take care of yourself first, because if you don't take care of yourself first, then you can't look after him. My father was sick, as you know,
correct,
for a long time. And it finally, like, the penny dropped, and I'm like, you know what? If I can't do this, I'm useless to everybody, and who's going to look after it? So women have to take care. Women have to support other women. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't, who is? Who will?
And I've used the analogy that when I'm clearly talking to a group that has been, let's say, indoctrinated, that you give up everything, but then you give up yourself. You give up yourself. The stronger you are with your self-confidence, the more you can imbue it to your children, and to the fact that the men here have had a difficult time because so many corporations and companies have unfortunately discriminated against even interviewing men over the age of 35, because there's this feeling that they have a lost generation. But the point I wanted to make as far as the women, I've used the analogy, when you're on a plane, what is the first thing that you pay attention to when the stewardess is giving the demonstration? It's that when the air mask comes down, you must put it on yourself so that you're strong enough to take care of your children, your passenger who might be a minor. That is something that immediately they see. They're not being selfish. They're our own gladiators. Amazonians, exactly.
Now, that was a picture from my birthday party. The picture before this was getting an award. Now, I'll tell you why I made my own little Oscar night. Because I know quite a few of the ladies here, and they do a lot of things for charity, and I had invited Princess Lia on stage because you've done so many things that most people don't know about, okay? And I'd like them to be aware of it, because I want to say chapeau to you for all the work you've done behind the scenes for all the charity. That, you know, it's very funny, because I told everybody you're coming on the show, and I get a lot of different reactions, and I said, you have no idea that, because I think people do that with women who are successful, and they have this idea, but they don't really know what's there and how the depth involved. And I said, no, I want to bring it out, and I want to talk about it on the show.
Well, I'd have to say this, it's always been a team effort. And what I adore about the Romanians, maybe it's that we, in our DNA, the DNA in English, is that we are stubborn. It's incapacitat. That if we want
people are. Yes,
to do something,
I will agree with that.
All right. Now, we got 10 tons of new blankets and new boots and jumpers and so on, because Romania had not experienced such a high level of floods. Now, it's not like Thailand when they had their flood or the tsunami. A country that has well, the water, let's put it this way. Bluntly for the audience, it's one thing to have a flood where it's warm water. That you can survive. But when you are in an area that's been deforested, the root system has collapsed, so it's a mudslide, it's a freezing cold rain and water coming through. And in the farming areas and in some of the mountain areas, there isn't insurance. It's not a social security system, and this is in the early days after the revolution. And it was very, very much of a shell-shocked community. So we were just blessed to have the army come with trucks. This is during Christmas holiday. And so the Catholic monks in Roman helped us a huge amount. They after the Christmas, they got to work, not doing missionary work, not doing anything, just rolling up their robes and digging in. So you have to also understand that if you're going in, if you don't understand the huge shame, misguided, about coming in line and asking for blankets, and also to understand the desperation where people from other areas are suffering with poverty somewhat, and so they may come into the line even though they're not qualified as a flood victim. So the gendarmerie was very gracious with everyone, asking to see the ID so that people in need were helped. But with that 10-ton, you also have to remember the pride and the fact that we even got help from Scientology. We spoke with the Orthodox Church and said, is this all right? They want to bring in tents, they want to bring in facilities, but do we have your permission? And of course this was able to be done. They did their work. It seems that in Romania, the people bring out the best because they don't ask, well, why should I do this? Why should I do that? It's more, why not? Why not? And the charity work, I'd have to say also, jobs are what is the foundation of a person's self-worth. Even if it's creating jobs like Roosevelt had done, it's the fact that you have somewhere to go, or you have a purpose of getting out of bed. And what we did is, on the generosity of companies, let's say we were given $700,000 worth of sterile medical equipment, sterile medical materials, I'm sorry. Now, when companies give that, you have to be realistic. They're not trying to compete with Mother Teresa. They would like to have some acknowledgement. So what we did is we thought, who can we bring in that would be a tie to the American psyche and appreciated and recognized by the Romanians? Larry Hagman, JR, and Dallas was the only program that was allowed to be filmed.
That was allowed to be shown here.
Yes, and
I heard that, and I said, why was that the only show? And they explained it to me.
yes, what was your explanation?
I tell you
Yes.
what I was told exactly, almost quote unquote, because we want to show how decadent the West is. And I was like, seriously?
Yes.
I didn't know if they were taking the piss out of me, man.
It's true.
And I said, okay. So I said, Dallas, why don't you take Dynasty at this point?
Indeed.
Okay, but I said, and that's what they show. But you see, when people now, after so many years and decades, have started to travel, they realize that there are parts in the world, that are like that. So it wasn't made just for TV. But I understood the mentality here of showing it like that, and I found that fascinating in a very unusual way.
To add to the truth of that, JR was an exception because they thought him to be very manly, and he was a good family man, and he was, drop dead handsome, and so on. Well, I used my first husband's client, my late husband's client, who was Mary Martin. Now, why would Mary Martin be
his mother?
His mother. A legend in the theater, in the musicals on Broadway. She was the first Maria in The Sound of Music. She was the first Eliza in My Fair Lady. So I said, is it possible your son is a much beloved figure? And she said, here's his home number. I'll arrange that he and the wife, Maya, will see you. You give them the pitch. Well, they came here, and it was like the second coming, because he was such a gentleman, and the Ministry of Defense also realized before NATO they wanted to use Larry, which I asked him, because he was an Air Force pilot on A Dream of Jeannie.
Yes,
and everybody knows this here. They're so
Tony Nelson.
Aren't you good? Aren't you good?
That was a long time ago. We don't have to date ourselves.
In a Romanian Air Force plane, we went to all of the bases. I feel like saying when we were in Constanza, hi sailor, new in town, and it was when President Iohannis was one of the administrators and then later mayor of Sibiu. Larry visited that. But what we did is we combined. We would go to a military base, the Academia de Thun in Sibiu, the Academy of Cannonry. And he did the tour. We got publicity on that. NATO is not just warmongers. NATO also is peacekeepers.
Yes.
And he was such a good ambassador. But it was also the graciousness of going to the different high schools, stay off drugs, finish your education, because no matter what can be taken away from you, your liberty, your looks, your youth, they can never take away your education. And that from his mouth, and it was at one of the private universities here, that there were 3,000 students that have never been so quiet in a lecture, but when he talked, it was just a delight to see the attention. But we segued that by following it up. Here, Prince Paul and I, my husband, were asked to help on breaking the deadlock in, or the bureaucracy, cutting through the bureaucracy in Stuttgart, because the Mills to Mills program had participated with the American government to gift Romania with a Hercules C-130. And they had asked various people, and I guess I was the only one who had actually been on two, not missions, projects. I don't want to be overly
I have
important.
so many more questions for you. So I'm going to invite you back another time if you if you don't
you
want.
mean the program's over?
Yes, and that's what I have to say.
Listen, whoever is out there in television land, if Nora Seroussi calls you, 45 minutes will go by in a snap. So
You're
accept
so
her
sweet.
invitation.
You're so sweet. I'd like to thank Her Royal Highness Princess Leia for joining us. And we really have so many things to talk about because you've had such an interesting life and you are a role model for so many people. And I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. Good night, everybody. I will see you in 2 weeks because next week is Thanksgiving. All the best. Night, night.